Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is speculate. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we can use this verb. The verb speculate means to form a theory or make a guess about a subject without having good evidence. So some people do this as part of their living, right? To make comments, to make guesses about why someone is acting or behaving in a certain way. So you might see this action or hear this action happening as you watch television, for example. A second way you might hear the verb speculate used is to mean to invest in stocks, property, or any type of investment in hope that you make a gain, while recognizing this investment has the possibility or the potential to create a loss. So this is generally considered to be kind of a risky activity. It could end positively, but it could also be very negative for someone as well. Speculate is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, we're going to drop the E and then add ing to form speculating. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding D, since this verb already ends with an E. The verb speculate ends with a T sound. I hope you can hear that. So our past tense ending is going to add an extra syllable and sound like id. So it'll sound like this: speculated, speculated. Now I'm going to point out some phrasal verbs to you, but the thing you should know is the definitions or meanings that I'm showing you are the exact things we've already talked about. It's really common to hear speculate used with our prepositions about, on, and in. So if you hear speculate about or speculate on, this ties back to the first definition we looked at. So making guesses about someone or something without having some evidence. So I have two example sentences here, and all I've done is switch the preposition. So the company is speculating about how successful this new product will be. The company is speculating on how successful this new product will be. Either one of those would be fine, and they really mean the same thing. If you hear the phrasal verb speculate in, this connects to the second definition. So again, investing in stocks or property, something else, in hopes that you make a lot of money, but acknowledging that there's the possibility you might also lose some money. Now, let's take a look at some different verb tenses that use our verb of the day. Today, we'll take a look at the past progressive, the simple past, and the present perfect progressive. Let's start with the past progressive. So many times you will see this verb tense describe an action that was ongoing at some point in the past, naturally. Many times you'll also see some sort of interrupting action occur. That interrupting action will always be in the simple past. So to make the past progressive, I'm going to use a past form of be, that's was or were, and then I use the ing form of the verb. So an example sentence: commentators on TV were speculating about who would be in President Biden's cabinet yesterday. So you might think of the cabinet as the most important advisors to the president. And the current president-elect is nominating people, like who he plans to have as part of his leadership team. But not all the positions have been announced, but many people are making guesses, and they may or may not have evidence on that. If I want to make a negative past progressive sentence, I'm going to insert not after my be verb. I wasn't speculating when I spoke. If I want to ask a yes or no question in the past progressive, I'm going to start with my past form of be, then I'll have my subject, and then the ing form of the verb. Was the doctor speculating on the cause of the cancer? Now let's take a look at the simple past tense. We're using this verb tense to describe something that was completed at a definite or known time in the past. So sometimes there will be a time reference or a time signal that tells us that it's a definite or known time. Sometimes it's implied as part of a conversation or part of a paragraph that we're reading. To make an affirmative simple past tense sentence, I'm going to use our ed form of the verb, the past tense form. This is true no matter what my subject is. So here's an example sentence. In early 2020, many scientists speculated on the cause of COVID-19. So early on, there wasn't much evidence. So we had people making guesses about where this came from. If I want to make a negative simple past tense sentence, I'm going to use did not and then the base verb. So in the negative, we're not using the ed form of the verb. Here's another example sentence. The legislator didn't speculate on how the two sides would settle budget differences. So this is another issue that's ongoing in the United States as our two main political parties have negotiations regarding a budget and providing more COVID-19 relief. Now, if I want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, I'm going to start with did, then I'll have my subject, then the base verb. Did investigators speculate on a motive? Now let's take a look at the present perfect progressive. So here we're describing an action that started in the past and it continues into the present. It's still ongoing. To make the present perfect progressive, I like to tell my students, do you see the 3 P's in the name? Present perfect progressive. Remember, you're going to need 3 parts to your verb in the affirmative here. So we're going to use have or has, depending on what our subject is. Then we're going to use the participle been. Then we'll use the ing form of the verb. Here's an affirmative example. Fans of the movie have been speculating as to whether there will be a sequel. Sequel is sort of like a continuation. So I feel like the best example of this is Star Wars, right? There have been many sequels in the telling of that story. Now let's take a look at negative present perfect progressive. To make this verb tense, I'm going to insert not after have or has. Then I'll continue to have been, my participle, then the ing form of the verb. Here's another example. The college team hasn't been speculating about its players becoming professionals. This tends to be a concern here in the United States with college football and college basketball, whether an athlete will stay in school and play for 4 seasons or whether they may decide to leave and become a professional athlete. Lastly, let's make a yes or no question in the present perfect progressive. To do this, we're going to start with have or has, then we'll have our subject, then been, then the ing form of the verb. Have people been speculating on the meaning of the monoliths? So this is something that also comes out of the news. You might have seen reports of these very tall, shiny objects appearing in random places like the desert here in the United States. I think there was another one in Central Europe. This is something else that's been in the news recently. But now let's focus on words that are related to our verb speculate. So we're going to highlight 3 for you today. The first is the noun speculation. just like our verb, it can have two different meanings. So the first meaning connects to our first definition of the verb. So speculation could be the forming of a theory without firm evidence. You can also think about it as the process of making a guess without information. So an example of this usage would be the judge rejected the lawsuit as speculation. So anyone can file a lawsuit here in the United States. It doesn't mean that someone else will have to pay the other person. And this sentence is saying the judge looks at the information and says, no, there's no good evidence. So I'm getting rid of this case. I'm dismissing it. The second meaning for the noun speculation is tying back to our second definition of the verb. So the investment in stocks, property, or other investments in hope of gain, but with the potential or risk of loss. So here's an example of that usage. The company is looking into property speculation for 2021. Okay. The next word we'll take a look at is the adjective speculative. This means it's that someone or something is engaged in or expressing an idea based on their theories or based on some guesses rather than actual knowledge. So an example of this adjective was something I saw in a newspaper article recently. The World Health Organization has said it would be highly speculative to say COVID-19 didn't emerge in China. So the sentence here is suggesting other people are coming up with these theories. What is the origin or where did the virus come from that has been affecting the whole world? And there are some people making guesses without any evidence, and this international organization has said that you're making these guesses without knowledge. The last word we'll look at is the noun speculator. So we might use this to describe a person who is investing in stocks or property, again, in hopes of making a profit, but acknowledging there is that risk. So here's an example of that. Speculators have been feeling nervous about the stock market. So again, another way of saying investors have been feeling nervous. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.